Hey, everybody, welcome to Sophisticated John. We hope you enjoyed our last episode and we have a lot to talk about today. So let's get into it.
Let's
Yo,
get
John.
Hey.
So, I'm always looking on Instagram. Um, I wonder if you saw there was a post about a person who had a friend who was in the presence of someone else that was talking about them and they didn't speak up. They didn't cover them, if in a sense, but instead just let them keep, talking and not in a positive way. I have opinions about it, but I'm curious. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't imagine someone talking about a friend of mine in my presence without saying something. It did make me think about some years ago when we first started becoming closer. And someone thought that your RBF was who you are. I think people make assumptions about us, just us as people in general, by how we maneuver and what they see without having any context or understanding of who we are on a deeper level. And so they think they can make judgments based
Mhm,
on even our representative. I think
mhm,
that's something we could talk about in the future too, like how we present and why we present in that way. But in that moment, I quickly had some words with the individual because I don't think it appropriate for me to call you friend or acquaintance or for us to be seen as friends and people make the assumption that they can talk slick about any of my friends in front of me. I can't imagine sitting and listening. And I know I've heard in the past people say, well, I wanted to know how much further they would go. I wanted to see what else they would say. You go two steps in the wrong direction and I'm on it. I know that's part of my personality, but it's funny because I feel the urge like bubbling up in me, like you better say something, and I
mhm,
listen. So I can't
mhm,
I can't imagine just sitting back and just letting it happen. What about you?
mhm. Yeah, so I think that's interesting. And again, I can go off on a tangent and I probably will, but I'll leave some breadcrumbs so we can get back to the origin of the conversation. Um, but I think that there are a couple things that spoke to me in this particular post. One being when I was talking about in episode one, boundaries and friendships and feeling like you need to have certain boundaries or feeling comfortable with certain people. I think that for someone to be in the presence of another person that's speaking about you in a negative manner and not speaking up for you, that triggers to me that that person feels that way about you
Mm,
and it justifies their feelings to hear someone else say it,
mm. Put that in
right?
your sophisticate, okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because so in a sense they don't feel the guilt because they didn't actually say it. I didn't verbalize it to anybody, but the fact that someone else is saying it and I feel this about you makes me feel like how I feel is right, although I won't
Mm.
say it to you.
Ooh,
Right?
child.
Because the truth is, and this is unfortunate, especially in today's times, people don't take the title of friendship seriously.
It's true.
And I do, so much so that there are very few people that I call friend. And you know that I don't use the term best friend for reasons that Lord, we'd be on here for 3 days and 6 hours if I were to dig into that. But because I have I am intentional in my relationships with people and my friendships. And so because of that, I believe, unfortunately, that some people that we classify as friends aren't really our friends. It is possible for someone to have a desire to keep tabs on you
Mhm.
and to know what you're doing and to be in your business. And in order to do that, I now have to wear this cloak of friendship, right? In order to make you trust me in a manner that will allow you to be vulnerable, share things or whatever when really I'm just gathering it because I really just want to know what's going on with you so then I can carry that bone and talk about you behind your back. But to your face, we're friends and I got your back or whatever. And in that moment and watching that clip or seeing that post on Instagram, it made me think. I was like, wow, there are so many of us, especially women,
Yeah.
who think we have friends, but the truth is folks are really just interested in what you have going on and what you can do for them
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than really being your friend. And so that's how I feel about it now. Going back to my RBF, while it may not be a true representation of who I am because of, how I am as a person. Once you get to know me, I believe that it's clear that people know that if I call this person friend, don't even crack your lips
That's right.
to
That,
attempt to say,
yeah, come on.
because there will be none. No, 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 not that one. Because I have said, someone said, I said, not that one.
Oh,
Next,
yes. Oh,
next.
yes.
Don't, because you're not about to sit in my face and talk about this person.
Mhm.
Or, oh, did you want to call her? Oh, because you
Right.
can call her.
Yeah. Let's bring this
You
up.
want me to call her?
Let's have a
Right?
talk.
Because everybody's tough until the person's in front of you. And we're
Yeah.
not talking about, excuse me, we're not talking about fighting. We're
Right.
talking about everybody is tough until the person is in front of you. I am also a person that will confront you.
Mm-hmm.
I will go, hey, let's have a conversation
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's important. So seeing that though triggered me into you only need a little something to make you go back in your little cocoon. I see, this why I have no friends. This is exactly why. This is why I don't talk to nobody. I don't tell nobody my business because they ain't right. They don't really care about you. And that's not the way to live, obviously, because there are good people who really do have your best interest at heart. But there are still some people who are more than happy to pretend to care about you, to pretend to be your friend, when really they are either in secret competition with you. And the reason
Mm.
why I say it's secret is because you're clearly in competition with
All
me
by
without
yourself.
my knowledge, because
All
I'm
by
not
yourself.
I'm not in competition with you.
No.
Or and then there, it's hard in relationships and also female friendships because my confidence could disrupt your insecurities.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And because of that, you you now want to slander me in a way to try to make me feel less than,
Mm.
because you would prefer to have the level of confidence in yourself that I have in mine.
That makes me think, though, about how people act in your face. So, thinking about those who are in competition all by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and the slights that they note, or the things that they say in your face
Mm-hmm.
to try to, I guess, chip away
Mm-hmm.
at you,
Mm-hmm.
either to see you crack,
Mm-hmm.
or to just drop those little nuggets of, yeah, I think I am better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we kind of navigate or discern those type of people in our presence? Like, what is it that you do that you feel like,
Mm-hmm.
I see you?
Yeah, that's a excuse me. That's a really great question. And I think it goes back to well, first of all, am I really the best person to answer this question? Because
Ah!
I overstay in friendships, child. I am loyal to a fault. It is awful. It's a great quality that I have, but it's also like a weakness.
Sure.
But I think it goes back to acknowledging people for who they are and who they show you that they
Mhm.
are, right? So often we want the best for and out of people that even though they show us who they really are, we're like, but I see that potential. I know they could. And that's true in friendships.
Mhm.
So there could be times, and there's always little, everybody wants to use the term red flags, right? There's
Mhm.
always little, Six Flags of Great Adventures
Ah!
uh, rides, right? Where someone is saying something like, we're celebrating a milestone. And it's like, oh, you think you cute, or some little stuff. And you're like, because you put them in this category where you don't need to have that boundary up. You don't feel like you have to protect yourself, but then it starts to become consistent.
Mhm.
And then your antennas start to go up. For me, and acknowledging someone wasn't really my friend, unfortunately, took for me to recall a situation with that person to an outside source, not talking about them, but saying, hey, I need to run something by you because I had this experience, but I'm not sure if I'm like overreacting and then it wasn't until that happened where I realized that a few people really were not my friend. And so how do you acknowledge that? How do you discern that? I think I don't want to say that we have to be on alert with everybody, but
Right.
nowadays, like, I was just listening to a sermon in a car, and it's like, nowadays everything is so fake, you don't know what to trust or who to trust. And
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate, but you do have to be mindful, right? So that first time that they say something slick or do something slick, it's like, okay, let me keep that in the back of my mind. And then if it happens again, it's like, okay, this is becoming a pattern, right? Two is a pattern. I don't know. Look, two is a pattern. Um, so and not being afraid to acknowledge that while I would love for this friendship to continue,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe we've had it for a really long time. And I think that's another place where we get stuck sometimes because we've been friends with someone for so long. We don't want to acknowledge that we can outgrow one another.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's important, is to like see things for what they really are versus how we would prefer them to be. And
Right.
sometimes we get lost there.
Yeah, yeah. Considering that I think for myself it's been a matter of like acknowledging where this friendship is. And I think you even made a statement about having people in like particular buckets. And I think I've
Mm-hmm.
always done that. Like I have a
Mm-hmm.
friend who I might chill with, like they are not
Mm-hmm.
outgoing, so we might chill. I have a friend who we used to always party when I was much younger. I have a friend who is like someone who I can kind of like intellectually click with. So it's a matter of, for me, acknowledging myself, my needs, and that I may not get that from every person like 100%. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing, kind of acknowledging where people are. But then I thought about those little slights, like, oh, you got a little raise, or you got a little new job, or your little new friend, like those things, those little slights at your accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And being able, just as I would be protective over those that I care about and saying something about them being
Mm-hmm.
slighted, I'm going to do the same for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that as soon as you say something that I feel a little like slighted by, I need to acknowledge that. I need to know, what did you mean by that? Or when you said that, this made me feel this particular way. I think, especially with friendships that we've held on to for a long time, we get into this groove of just accepting whatever they put out,
Yep.
and being able to speak up and speak out for yourself, I think is something that not a lot of people are comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But and not saying that everything needs to be acknowledged. Like some things is like, okay, you can have that if you need
Mm-hmm.
that. That is water off of my back. It does not do anything to or for me. So I acknowledge that sometimes I'll let things go
Mm-hmm.
until, like you said, it becomes a pattern. But those things that I feel like, if I have a visceral response to it, I
Mm-hmm.
can't let that go. I
Mm-hmm.
have to know myself enough to know that, just like I talked about it bubbling up of me saying something, if someone that was saying something about someone I care about, I should care about myself in the same vein,
Absolutely.
so that I can acknowledge what I'm feeling and make sure that I don't feel that again, because I'm not going to let it become a pattern. If
Mm-hmm.
if it becomes a pattern, then I've done a disservice to myself.
Mm-hmm.
But also, maybe, just maybe, the person didn't intend, and I give
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people the benefit of the doubt sometimes, for
Mm-hmm.
something to come out in the way that it did. Or, not everybody is as thoughtful or kind of reflective as, you and I are, so they don't realize that you just don't say particular things, or you don't say it a particular way. And acknowledging that for myself helps them to realize that. And if they
Yeah.
don't, then it's requires a little more reflection from me for myself in the friendship, and how far I'm going to allow this to go, or do I just let it go altogether? And then thinking about friendships too, that may have extended over long periods of time. Like you said, sometimes you just grow in different directions. I am definitely not the Danielle of my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not her. And I absolutely love her, and I hold on to her closely because she needs a hug every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't have people pulling me back into that space, pulling
Mm-hmm.
me back into that mindset, pulling me back into, because no, the Danielle I know, but do you really know me? If
Right.
that's what you're saying?
Right.
Because I've grown and I've evolved. And if you haven't in this way, I'm not knocking you at all, but it
Mm-hmm.
may not be that we need to be the type of friends, or
Yep.
even friends, as we once were.
Yeah, and that's okay. A
Mhm.
couple of things you said I think are important to sort of highlight. You should be able to go to your friend and communicate about anything that makes you feel uncomfortable or anything that requires clarity. That's not you trying to start anything. That's not you being angry, but instead that's you trying to avoid any miscommunication, because
Right.
something that you could have taken a certain way may not have been said with that intention. And a quick conversation could have squashed that versus you assuming, and now y'all aren't speaking for a long period of time to then come back and find out, oh, I didn't mean it that way.
Right.
Right. So that's number one. And I think that's important to be present in friendships, is the ability to communicate, have some hard conversations if necessary, and to be able to rebound from it. Because having hard conversations doesn't mean that I don't care about you and that I don't want to be friends with you, but it does mean that in this moment I felt this way about something you said, and you either said it with this intention or you didn't. And so
Right.
if you did say it with this intention, let's dig a little deeper and understand why and where that came from. Because then in doing that, you could find out that you may have said something that you didn't intend to be taken the
Right.
wrong way, but they did. And instead of saying something, a lot of times, a lot of relationships dissolve because of miscommunication,
Mhm.
right? And as women, sometimes we don't want to. I don't say nothing to her. She shouldn't have said
Right.
that. She know me.
That's right.
You know me. You know I don't play that. And
Okay.
it's like, wait a minute, hold on. But that's okay, because one thing that I've always tried to consider is that before we have this interaction, I've had a journey and you've had a journey. So there could have been things that have happened on that journey that could make your interpretation of something very different today than it would have been yesterday. So
Mhm.
we have to, in giving people grace, we have to consider that. The other thing is, even though, sometimes relationships and friendships, you can outgrow a person, or each other, it is also possible for you to grow together. It is
Yeah.
also possible for that 20-year-old person that you were,
Mhm.
and whoever you were friends with when you were 20, to be absolutely still great friends in your 40s.
That's right.
Right? That's absolutely possible, because you're giving each other the ability and the space to grow, and you're accepting whoever they are and
Mhm.
becoming. And if you are the same person today that you were in your 20s, I'm not sure that I want to be friends with you,
Yeah.
because that shows me that there was no growth. And so if you've not grown, then will you accept my growth?
Mhm.
Because I can assure you, and you and I are talking, right,
Mhm.
that I am not the same person
That's
from
right.
when you met me,
No,
right?
not at all.
And
Yeah.
you're not the same person from when I met you. And
Yeah.
that's all good things. We have celebrated a lot of accomplishments with each other, of one another, a lot of milestones. We've traveled together. We've had hard conversations about life and
Yeah.
about, just different things. So I think that's important. I think one thing I will say, and even though I started this episode by saying, the post in how, a friend being in a space where someone was talking about them and they didn't speak up, I would also like to say, there are really, really wonderful things that we can get out of friendships, out
Yeah.
of intentional, grown friendships, where two people are intentional about the relationship, are intentional about the communication, are intentional about the support. And if we are mindful of those things, and I also agree that we need each other.
Yeah.
We cannot operate on our own. Like, it
Mhm.
is, we shouldn't have to.
Right.
Women, I think that women, we go through so many changes in life that when you have another genuine person that you can connect with and you can share those challenging moments or those exciting moments with, that helps along this journey in life. Life is a ball of a lot of things in and of itself. So
Indeed.
why not have those moments where you can get together with your friend over brunch? You can get together with your friend over tea, crabs. We enjoy,
Yes.
we go
Yes.
to our little crab restaurant. Or a trip. And there's nothing, you don't have to be uptight. Oh, if I go on this trip by day 3, she's finna get on my nerves. It
Right.
doesn't have to be that. So while on one hand, yes, you do have to be mindful and you do have to pay attention to patterns and protect yourself. And on the other hand, I really wish for more people to have genuine friendships where you can feel safe, where
Yeah.
you can know, I know that no one's going to say anything negative about me in front of you. And you know that no one's going to crack their lips in front of me.
Mhm.
Forget a word, because
Right.
you already know, if I have made it clear that this is somebody I roll with, don't even try it.
That's right. That's
Just
right.
don't try it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that all kind of encapsulates from, you know, how we show up as our individual selves, how we show up in friendship, how we show up in relationship, and how we should show up for the things that are important to us. So great talk today. Looking forward to more conversation and ideas coming from our audience. We thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.